Imagine this. You've waited years for a moment where everything you've been holding on to finally comes together. Amy, with all the heartbreak, the loss, and the time spent without the one person who meant everything to her, now stands on the edge of something that could change everything. It's been a long road, the tension, the silence, and the hope that one day it would all be worth it. And now, that moment is closer than ever. Ty is coming back. But after all this time, what does that reunion really mean? Will it be the same as it was, or has too much changed? The journey, so far Amy and Ty's story, has never been simple. From the very first time they met, their connection was undeniable. But just as quickly as it sparked, life started testing them. Their bond, solid at first, was challenged by the unexpected. Ty's sudden departure, the demands of their separate lives, and the constant struggle between love and responsibility. We all remember when Ty left. It was a gut-wrenching moment for both of them, and the heartbreak was real. Amy, who had always been the strong one, now found herself in a place she never imagined. Alone, unsure of what the future held, and surrounded by memories of the man who had been her partner, her confidant, and her rock. Her days at the ranch became quieter. The once lively ranch now seemed to echo with the silence left by his absence. And yet through it all, Amy carried on. She didn't just keep things running at Heartland, she grew stronger. She found new purpose in the work, in the horses, and in the people around her. But deep inside, there was always that empty space. She missed Ty. Not just the man he was, but the life they had started to build together. Ty, on the other hand, wasn't far away. Even though his work took him on a different path, he never truly left. His heart was still at Heartland, even if his body wasn't. The distance between them was more than physical. It was emotional, too. The guilt of leaving, the pain of knowing Amy had to carry the weight of everything on her shoulders. It ate at him. But the life he had chosen was demanding, and the challenges he faced made it hard to come back, even when he longed to. For years they lived separate lives, but their connection never faded. The love they shared didn't just disappear. With time, it lingered quietly in the background of their everyday lives. Both of them, though miles apart, kept looking back, at the good times, the bad, and all the moments that led them to where they are today. Now, after all these years, the questions remain. Was it worth it? Will they be able to pick up where they left off? Or has time changed them in ways that they didn't expect? Amy's heart has always been open, but is Ty ready to walk through that door again? The path to this reunion wasn't easy, and it's far from over. But the journey to this point has shaped them both into people who might just be ready to find each other again. The tension builds. The quiet of the ranch had become a part of Amy's life, a background hum she learned to live with. But there were moments, rare and fleeting, when that silence felt heavier than ever. A quiet that spoke of unanswered questions, of time that slipped by too fast, and of a love that never quite died, no matter how much space had come between it. It wasn't that Amy had given up hope. In fact, it was quite the opposite. Her strength had grown in the absence of Ty, as had her ability to face the challenges of running Heartland on her own. But no matter how strong she became, no matter how much the ranch thrived under her care, a small part of her always carried the weight of waiting for him. Waiting for that day when the phone would ring or a letter would arrive, or maybe even a chance meeting would spark the change she longed for. The ranch had become Amy's world, her purpose. She threw herself into her work, tending to the horses, helping those in need, doing everything she could to keep Heartland alive. Yet there were nights when she would catch herself staring at the empty space where Ty's boots should have been, where his voice should have filled the air. There were mornings when she would wake up and feel the absence beside her, and it was then that the weight of his departure felt unbearable. Ty's absence wasn't just a physical one. It was emotional, a gaping hole in the fabric of Amy's life. She had learned to live with it, but that didn't mean it didn't hurt. Sometimes she would find herself holding on to small things, memories, photos, old messages that kept him close even though he was miles away. Meanwhile, Ty was fighting his own battles. Every time he thought about returning, something held him back. The work he had taken on was demanding, pushing him further and further from the place he truly wanted to be. But deep inside he knew that Heartland was where his heart was. It wasn't just about the land or the work, it was about Amy. No matter how much time passed, she was never far from his thoughts. As the months passed, a feeling started to settle, in a strange mixture of anticipation and fear. Both Amy and Ty knew that something had to give. The world around them was shifting, and they couldn't keep pretending that things would stay the same forever. But as much as Amy wanted to believe Ty would return, she also feared that time had changed things too much. What if he wasn't the man she remembered? What if she wasn't the woman he had left behind? And Ty, was he ready to face the life he had walked away from? Would he be able to step back into the life they had once built together, or had too much time and distance created a barrier that couldn't be crossed? As the days grew longer and the seasons changed, the tension between what they both wanted and what they feared began to build. The question wasn't if they would reunite, it was how. Could they reconnect after so much time apart? Would the love that had once defined them still burn as brightly? Or had the space between them become too vast to bridge? Amy could feel it. The change was coming. It was in the air, in the way she caught herself smiling at nothing, as if the thought of Ty was somehow closer than before. She could sense the shift. And whether she was ready for it or not, she knew that the moment she had been waiting for was drawing near. The moment of hope. It was as though the universe had been holding its breath, and with the passing of each day it grew more certain that something was about to shift. Amy hadn't expected it to happen like this. There was no grand gesture, no warning, no sudden moment that screamed, "This is it." Instead, it was subtle, a feeling in her chest that she couldn't shake, a whisper in her heart that perhaps, just perhaps, this was the moment she had waited for. It started with something small, a letter. It arrived on an ordinary morning carried by a rider on horseback, just as things always were at Heartland. But the moment Amy saw the envelope in her hand, something inside her stirred. She didn't need to open it to know it was from him. Her heart skipped a beat, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she allowed herself to hope. It was a strange feeling. Hope, after all this time, was like a muscle that hadn't been used in years. It was fragile, tender, almost foreign, but there it was, pulsing softly in her chest. She opened the letter, her hands trembling. His words were simple, yet they carried more weight than anything she had read in a long time. It was a message of hope, a declaration that things were changing. He was coming back. The letter didn't give her all the answers she had longed for, but it gave her something far more important, the first glimpse of a future that no longer seemed impossible. Ty was coming back, and the door she had closed, so many times the door she had locked with the key of her own doubt, was slowly creaking open once more. The hope that surged through her felt both exhilarating and terrifying. There was no denying it. Ty's return was exactly what Amy had been waiting for, yet in the same breath she knew the reunion wouldn't be as simple as picking up where they left off. Time had passed, and so much had changed. For both of them. Still, for the first time in years, Amy allowed herself to believe that this could be the start of something new. A new chapter, yes, but not one that erased the past. She knew that. Their story wasn't one that could be erased or rewritten. What they had was something different, something stronger, and maybe, just maybe, that something was still alive, waiting to be rediscovered. As the days passed, Amy found herself living in a strange state of anticipation. Every sound, every shadow, every rider on horseback, they all made her heart leap. Was it him? Was this the moment? The uncertainty, while it had once felt heavy, now became something almost thrilling. She wasn't just waiting anymore. She was preparing for something real. The hope she felt wasn't just a fleeting thought. It was the beginning of a promise a chance for something she thought was lost forever. This time, it felt different. It wasn't just hope. It was a spark that could turn into a flame, and all she had to do was wait for him. Wait for the moment when Ty finally returned and the story that had been suspended in time could continue once more. The question wasn't if it would happen, it was when. The question wasn't whether their love would survive. It was whether they could survive the reunion that had been years in the making. Would they be able to reclaim what was lost, or would they be strangers trying to find their way back to each other? Whatever the answer, Amy knew one thing for sure. The moment of hope had arrived and she was ready to face whatever came next. The reunion, and then it happened. The kind of moment that makes time stand still. A moment when the entire world seems to pause, holding its breath, as two lives, long separated, finally collide once again. It was a feeling that washed over Amy the instant she saw him. The same feeling that had been buried deep within her heart all this time. The overwhelming surge of recognition, the wave of emotion she hadn't allowed herself to feel for so long. Ty was back. The ranch had never felt so alive. The distant thud of hooves against the earth, the crisp air, the whisper of the wind through the trees, all of it seemed to lead up to this one single moment. Amy stood at the window, her eyes locked on the horizon. Her heart raced, her breath caught in her throat, and she could hardly believe what she was seeing. Ty's silhouette. There he was, riding back toward Heartland, just as she had always imagined, but somehow different. The man she had once known, the one she thought she had lost forever, was here. It wasn't a grand entrance. There was no dramatic fanfare, no orchestrated surprise. Instead, it was simple, pure, and real. Ty, just as he always had, rode toward her, his face unreadable, yet something in his eyes revealed everything. He had returned not just to the ranch, but to her. Amy's heart pounded in her chest as he drew closer. A flood of memories hit her. The first time they had met, the joy they had shared, the life they had built together. It felt like those moments had all led up to this one, like the universe had been quietly plotting for their paths to cross again. But this time it wasn't just fate. This time, it was real, and it was happening now. As Ty dismounted, the air between them crackled, with tension, with hope, with 1,000 unspoken words. Amy wanted to run to him, to throw herself into his arms, but something held her back. The years, the distance, the time that had changed them both. She stood frozen, a million emotions swirling inside her, unsure of what to say, unsure of what to do. Ty, too, seemed unsure. His eyes met hers, and for a moment the world faded away. There were no words needed. In that instant, everything that had been said before, everything that had happened between them, seemed to melt into the past. What mattered now was the present. The here, the now, and the chance to rebuild. He took a few steps toward her, his face softening as he closed the distance. His hand reached out, not in haste, but with a quiet certainty, as if asking for permission to bridge the gap that time had created. Amy could feel her breath catch in her throat. She had dreamed of this moment, but now that it was here, it was more than she had ever imagined. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy, but it was real. It was theirs. As his hand touched hers, all the fears, the doubts, the time apart, seemed to disappear. For the first time in years, Amy felt the full weight of Ty's presence. It wasn't about the words they would say or the things they would need to overcome. It was about what had always been between them, a love that had never faded, even when they were miles apart. They didn't need to say anything. The connection was undeniable, the unspoken understanding louder than words ever could be. And, in that simple, quiet moment, Amy realized something that she had forgotten in the years of waiting. The love they shared had never left. It had only grown quietly in the spaces between them until the time was right to reunite. The reunion wasn't a grand spectacle. It wasn't a moment of perfect closure. It wasn't about fixing everything that had been broken. It was about the simple truth that no matter how far they had drifted apart, No matter how much time had passed, they had always been meant to find their way back to each other. And in that moment, as Ty stood before her, Amy knew that their story was far from over. It was just beginning again. Reflection. The world felt different now, as if the air around Amy had shifted, charged with a new energy. She stood there, still a little dazed, watching Ty move around the ranch with the same familiarity he had always had. His hands touched the gates, the tools, the horses, everything that had once been his world. And as she observed him, something inside her began to click. This wasn't just a reunion of two people. This was a reunion of everything they had built together, everything they had learned apart, and everything they still had to grow into. For the first time in years, Amy realized that the love she and Ty shared wasn't just a simple story of two people reuniting. It was a story of growth, of time spent apart that had shaped them into who they were now. They weren't the same people they had been when Ty first left Heartland. So much had changed, and not just because of the distance. It was the quiet, moments of reflection, the years of solitude, the lessons they'd learned in their own corners of the world that had brought them here. She couldn't deny that the Amy standing here today was different from the one who had once watched Ty walk out of Heartland, her heart breaking with each step he took. Back then she had clung to the hope that they would be okay. But now it wasn't about hope anymore. It was about the strength they had both found within themselves, the things they had overcome individually, and the understanding that they didn't need to be the same people they once were to make it work again. Ty had changed too. The man who had left was younger, more uncertain, carrying his own burdens, yet he had returned with a steadier, more grounded sense of self. Amy saw it in the way he carried himself now. No longer the boy with a world of questions, but a man who had faced his demons, learned from them, and was now ready to face the future with her. It wasn't about fixing everything that had gone wrong. It was about accepting each other as they were now, flaws and all. As Amy watched him, she began to realize that the real beauty of their reunion wasn't the grand gestures or the dramatic moments. It was the quiet, unspoken acknowledgement of all they had been through, of all they had become. They had both endured their own personal battles, and yet, in the end, it was this shared history, these quiet, unsaid moments, that made their bond stronger than ever. And that was what mattered, now. It wasn't about reliving the past or trying to erase the time that had passed. It was about building something new from everything they had gone through, from the lessons, the struggles, and the love they still shared. There were no guarantees, no promises that everything would be perfect. But what they did have was this moment, a moment that was theirs, a new beginning that only they could create. Amy's heart no longer felt heavy. It felt light, open, and full of possibilities. She had carried the weight of the past for so long, and now, as she stood beside Ty, the future felt less uncertain. It was no longer about fearing what might happen. It was about embracing the unknown together, as partners, as individuals who had both grown and learned from everything life had thrown at them. And as they moved forward, Amy realized that what mattered most wasn't how their journey had started, but how they would navigate the rest of it together. As the sun set over Heartland, casting a golden glow over the ranch, Amy took a deep breath, letting go of all the worries that had haunted her for so long. In that moment, she knew that no matter what came next, they would face it together. And that was enough. Looking forward, the days felt different now. There was a quiet certainty that had settled over Heartland, a feeling of calm amidst the usual chaos of ranch life. Amy and Ty had found their way back to each other, but it wasn't just about the past, it was about the future. And for the first time in a long while, the future felt full of possibility. They had lived through enough to know that life didn't always go according to plan, but maybe, just maybe, that's what made it beautiful. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments of uncertainty, moments where the weight of everything they had been through seemed too heavy to bear. But what, Amy realized, standing there beside Ty once more, was that life wasn't about avoiding those moments. It was about how they faced them together. The ranch, their love, their bond. It had always been about the strength they found in each other. As they rode out across the sprawling fields of Heartland, side by side, the world felt vast and endless. The golden sunlight stretched across the horizon, the horses' hooves steady beneath them. For the first time in a long while, Amy felt a deep sense of peace. There was something deeply reassuring about riding next to Ty again, something grounding. It wasn't just the work of the ranch or the horses that had called them back together. It was the shared understanding that, no matter what had happened, they could face whatever came next with strength and unity. Together they were an unshakable force. They had both spent so much time apart thinking that they had to do things on their own. But now it was clear that they didn't have to. They had each other, and that was enough. The ranch had always been about healing the land, the animals, the people. But this time the healing was something deeper. It was about two people who had been through their own battles, who had each carried their own pain and growth, and had come out the other side stronger than ever. Their journey was far from over, but for once, it didn't feel like a burden. Horizon seemed to stretch forever, a metaphor for the endless possibilities that lay ahead. Amy and Ty's love story wasn't just one of nostalgia or past heartbreak. It was a story of transformation, of learning, of healing, and ultimately, of building a future from the ashes of their past. The questions they had once asked, the fears that had held them back no longer seemed so daunting. They knew there would be challenges. They knew the road wouldn't always be smooth. But they also knew that, together, they could handle whatever came their way. There was a sense of comfort in that knowledge, a peace that could only come from the deep trust they had in each other. As they slowed their horses near the barn, Amy looked over at Ty. He was smiling, a quiet contentment in his eyes that matched the peace she felt. It was a look of understanding, of knowing that the love they shared wasn't just something that had survived, it had evolved. And in that evolution, they had both found something far more valuable than they could have ever imagined: a shared future. For Amy and Ty, Heartland wasn't just a place, it was a promise that no matter how far apart they had been, no matter how many years had passed, their love would always bring them home to each other. And now, with everything they had learned, everything they had built, they were ready for whatever the future held. Together. As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting a warm, golden glow over the land they both loved so much, Amy stood still, for a moment taking in the peaceful scene around her. The ranch Heartland had always been more than just a place. It had been a home, a sanctuary, and a backdrop to the most important moments of her life. And now, with Ty by her side once again, it felt like something even more powerful. A new chapter had begun, and as much as they had faced in the past, the future seemed wide open, full of opportunities they had yet to explore. The reunion hadn't been a perfect moment, nor had it come without its challenges. But what mattered wasn't perfection. What mattered was that they had found their way back to each other. No longer divided by distance or time, they were now stronger than ever, ready to build on what they had once lost and what they had gained apart. The love they shared had always been real, but now it was different, richer, deeper, and far more understanding of the complexities of life. Amy looked at Ty, her heart swelling with gratitude and love. She had spent so long wondering if they would ever find their way back to this moment, but now, as she stood here with him, she understood something she hadn't fully realized before. Love, true love, isn't about staying in the same place or time forever. It's about growing, changing, and finding each other in the spaces where life has taken you. It's about learning and forgiving, growing together rather than staying stagnant. They had both done that, and now they could move forward with a new kind of certainty. Ty, too, seemed to be at peace. His eyes met hers, and in that shared glance, there was an unspoken promise. No matter what lay ahead, they would face it together, as they always had, even if the road was uncertain. The air was still, the only sound the soft rustling of leaves in the breeze. For a long time, this moment had seemed like an impossible dream, one that Amy had nearly let slip away. But now, it was real. Ty was here, and their love was alive in a way it hadn't been in years. This moment was theirs, and nothing could take that away. As the camera pulled away, the image of Amy and Ty side by side, silhouetted against the setting sun, remained. It was a moment of quiet strength, and a reminder that no matter how far apart you may drift, love, true love, always finds its way back home. The journey wasn't over. In fact, it was just beginning. And for Amy and Ty, their story was about to unfold in ways neither of them could have ever imagined. Together, they were ready for whatever came next, knowing that their bond, their shared history, and the love that had never faded would guide them every step of the way. The Heartland Ranch, with its open fields and endless skies, stood as a symbol of the new chapter they were about to write together. It was a promise that love, no matter how long it takes to find its way back, will always lead you home.